Since I last saw you, I cut out the boring part, and that was the sanding of this bowl. But what I'll do is I'll go through the main points. First of all, this is green wood and it's moist. It has a lot of moisture in it. So before you can sand it, you need to dry the surface just a little bit. So what I use is a heat gun, or you could use a hairdryer, and just lightly dry the surface, just enough so that the sandpaper won't clog. You work through your grades of sandpaper. In my case, I've worked through to 320 grit, and because this has been in plastic since I last saw you, moisture has come back to the surface of the wood. So I'm going to have to give it a bit of a dry and then a quick sand, and then I'll be ready to start reversing and hollowing the inside. Now that the outside of the bowl is finished, I've reversed it onto a pair of super jaws and tightened it up nice and firmly. Make sure that you give it that little bit of an extra tweak. Check to see that it's running truly, or as truly as possible. Then, for extra support, it's always good to bring your tailstock into place and put the live center into position, just in case. No matter how experienced you are, it's never a bad idea to have a backup plan. Next part of the setup is to bring your tool rest into position, adjust the saddle so that it's clear of the wood, and then the tool rest needs to be about 5mm below the center height of the drive center and about 5 to 10mm away from the wood. Spin the wood around to make sure nothing's going to hit, and you are ready to start hollowing. The first thing I need to do is to trim up the surface of the bowl, because chances are there's a little bit of distortion, or the wood isn't running exactly truly. So clean that up first. I'll use the deep fluted bowl gouge, the one that I've sharpened to a fingernail grind. So let's start. Safety glasses on, machine on, and I'm using a push cut in this case. In case you're not happy with the surface straight off the gouge, you might want to use a scraper. So this is a round nose scraper, and just carefully bring it into contact with the wood and just clean up that surface, because that's going to be your final surface. And another thing to keep in mind, I'm going to have a rather sharp edge here, and while that's spinning around, it can cut like crazy. So what I'll do is I'll just take a little bit of that corner off with the scraper, and that'll keep me safe. Now that I've got a nice clean surface and a flat surface there, I can start removing wood rather rapidly. So what I'll do is I'll switch from the 1/2 inch bowl gouge to a 3/4 inch, and I can go to town. As I continue to hollow out this bowl, I need to check the thickness of the walls, especially once I get down to the bottom of the bowl. So I use, apart from my finger gauge, I also use a figure 8 caliper, and I'm just checking to see, right, I've got plenty of wood still there. Okay, so now I need to start refining this shape. As I approach the bottom of the bowl, I can now remove the stub that's in the middle here. I've turned it down to about a 12mm thick stub. All I do now is wind the tailstock back, pull it out of the way, because I need access to the bowl, and break that off. Now that I've removed the stub from the centre, I've taken the tailstock right away, and that gives me more movement or more access so that I can really sweep the gouge around the inside of the bowl. I can do that with either the fingernail ground bowl gouge, either the 1/2 inch or the 3/4 inch, or I can change to a swept back grind gouge, which has much longer wings on the sides, and it also is sharpened to a far blunter angle. Now that I've finished the inside of the bowl with my gouges, I'm not quite 100% happy with the surface, so I'm now going to clean it up with a scraper. Now, I've got 3 scrapers here. They're all more or less the same, but they do have a bit of variation. This is a round nose scraper, but it is a relatively thin blade. So if you're doing some heavy work, I'd recommend you go for a nice heavy scraper, and you can see the difference in the thickness of the 2 blades here. And they're both round nose. And then there's an even more specific one for finishing off the bottoms of bowls, and this one again is a cryogenic one, and this is the bowl finishing scraper. And you can see how it's sharpened way over on the left side so that I can get nice and close to the wood and then just drag the tool across the surface of the wood. And that should leave me with a nice uniform surface. Now that I've got that surface on the inside nice and neat, I'm ready to start sanding. So because this wood is still quite green, first of all I'll use a heat gun and I'll lightly go over the surface to dry the surface, and then back to the inertia sanders, working my way through to 320 grit to sand all the inside. But I'm not going to bore you with that right now. I've taken out a bowl that I've already completed. Now, the stage from here to here is not that complicated as long as you know what you're doing. What I've done with this one is I've sanded it right through the finished stage. The rim has been burnt. I haven't needed to do any more sanding in the drying process. The wood has distorted as it has dried, so you can see the rim is uneven, which I quite like, and it's developed an uneven surface. It's almost a leathery type of surface, so I'm ready to put a finish on it now. My choice of finishes is an Organoil Danish Oil, and it's a simple process to follow. All you do is make sure you give the oil a bit of a shake, mix it up, and then with a cloth, or you can brush it on, but I'll wipe it on, and so apply the oil quite liberally, and you can see instantly how the colour changes and deepens. You'll need to put a couple of coats on. What I generally do is I apply the oil, and then I just leave it to dry overnight. If I need to reapply oil, I can do that the next day. Otherwise, it's just a quick wipe back with a dry cloth and the bowl's finished.